And welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, October the 9th, 2025. It's the 282nd day of the year and Leif Erikson Day, established in 1964 by President Lyndon B. Johnson as a day to honor the Viking explorer and Nordic American heritage. Speaking of world history, people may be talking about what happens over the next few days for generations to come, after President Trump laid out phase one of a Middle East peace plan and plans for Hamas to release the remaining hostages. Let's start it off with the announcement on Finnerty.
It is important to note before we say anything else, but none of this happens without Donald Trump in the White House. If Donald Trump is not president, this does not happen. The opposite happens. That's what happened when Joe Biden was in office. It was war through weakness. Now it's peace through strength. The president posting on Truth Social that Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a peace deal and that all remaining hostages will be freed this weekend. Saturday is when this is going to happen, reportedly. The president saying, "I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed upon line as the first step towards a strong, durable, everlasting peace."
In fact, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with his cabinet right now as I record this to approve the agreement of phase one of the plan. President Trump also going to meet with his cabinet today. Phase one includes Israel partially pulling back troops from Gaza, releasing Palestinian prisoners, and Hamas releasing the remaining 20 living hostages as well as the bodies of others. This is reaction from family members of some of the hostages on the phone with President Trump yesterday.
You did it!
Wow. You did it! Wow. Thank you!
This is amazing. Mr. President, we believe in you. We know you've done so much for us over the past, since you became a president, and even before that. And we trust you fulfill the mission until every hostage, every 48 of the hostages are home. Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
And we get more reaction from our Greg Kelly.
This president is not afraid to break a sweat, take a risk. Maybe it won't work. Oh, my goodness gracious, but maybe it will. Meanwhile, Joe Biden was content. He was content with war. He was content with chaos. And all too often throughout American history, our leaders, for bizarre reasons, are content with war. They're not really in a rush to end war, or even prevent them. Robert McNamara, the architect behind the Vietnam War, we now know everything that this guy knew as Secretary of Defense under Kennedy and Johnson. A lot of things he wasn't telling the American people. They kept that war going when they knew it was futile. They just kept it going. Totally bizarre. How about all of our stuff in the Middle East, in Iraq? Who's that guy on the left? That's the former Secretary of Defense, the late not-so-great Donald Rumsfeld, meeting with Saddam Hussein. Makes me wonder about that war with no weapons of mass destruction, and we went there, right? Also, I'm reminded of our loss in Afghanistan, that horrific, needless catastrophe on the way out the door. But what did President Trump say today? Blessed are the peacemakers. Now, of course, that is a reference to the Bible.
The same reference from the Gospel of Matthew that you heard one of the hostages' family members mention to President Trump. Experts say Hamas was pretty much on their last leg, right, after being devastated by all of Israel's attacks, and that they probably knew the end was coming. So this was not only to help the people of Gaza, agreeing to the ceasefire. It's not only to help the people of Gaza, but it's also about helping themselves from being completely annihilated, maybe for good. The other big headline, former FBI Director James Comey pleaded not guilty to a pair of federal charges that he lied to Congress. We go back to Greg Kelly reports and special guest Florida Republican Representative Byron Donalds, a member of the House Oversight and Reform Committee.
The indictment and now the arraignment and the prosecution of former FBI Director Jim Comey. As you know, he was in court today, pleaded not guilty. And from what I know, this is one solid case, but this is also the tip of the iceberg. Your thoughts as he turned himself in today, sir?
And my thought is simple. Nobody's above the law. That's what James Comey tried to tell us. He tried to lecture us on that several years ago. And that's just the way it is. According to the indictment, he lied to Congress. He knowingly put things in motion with somebody either being an apparatchik in the press or leaking to the press. And then he told Congress that that was simply not true. Well, guess what? If any citizen lied in front of Congress under oath, they should be prosecuted, just the way James Comey is being prosecuted now. So we'll see where it goes. But let's be clear. Nobody is above the law. And it's about time that we have people who are going to hold Democrats and Democrat apparatchiks accountable the same way they wielded the justice system to go after their political rivals.
I'd like to get, if you don't mind, your thoughts on what seems to be a breakthrough moment. We're going to have the hostages home potentially very soon. President Trump put out that statement, and it was informed by his Secretary of State that the hostages and Hamas and Israel, they've worked something out, thanks to us. Oh, by the way, it's pretty cool.
First things first, Donald Trump is the president of peace. He's been committed to the peace process, not just in the Middle East, but all around the world. He just wants people to live in harmony and peace, and he should definitely be acknowledged by the Nobel Committee and everybody else once and for all. Number two, my prayer is that this deal holds, the hostages come home, and that you get an opportunity to have real security in the Middle East for Israelis and their families and have some closure once and for all. This is a momentous day. Once again, Donald Trump and his team have been committed to finding a path forward towards peace. Contrast that with what we were told a decade ago by the lamestream media and Hillary Clinton, that if Donald Trump was president, you'd have World War III. Once again, they put out lies that made no sense. The truth is, Donald Trump is the one who's trying to bring peace, not just to the Middle East, but to the entire world.
It is amazing. It is amazing to watch, and it must be amazing for you to be able to participate in all of this. Congressman Byron Donalds, Republican of Florida. Go to ByronDonalds.com, ByronDonalds.com. Some very interesting things going on. You're running for governor. The primary is August of next year, which will be here before you know it. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you.
Florida Congressman Byron Donalds on Greg Kelly Reports. I live in Florida. I can tell you Byron Donalds was the first to announce that he wants to succeed Governor DeSantis, and he has been pounding the pavement, as they say, attending multiple events every week and weekend. He does have two other people challenging him in the Republican primary. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz, you may recall, was a potential gubernatorial candidate, but then he declined to run. David Jolly, a name that may sound familiar to you. He is a former Republican congressman here in Florida, turned Democrat, turned MSNBC staff member. He's the lone Democrat in the governor's race, but there is at least one other Democrat rumored to be considering a run as well. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the finger pointing between the Republicans and Democrats over the shutdown, now on day 9, went to a whole new level yesterday.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Republican New York Congressman Mike Lawler almost got into a fight in the hallway.
Why did you vote to shut the government down? Why did you vote to shut it down?
Let me ask you a question.
For years, you always lectured about how we need to keep the government open.
You're making a show of this to make yourself relevant.
It's sad. You could easily sign on to this.
You're embarrassing yourself right now. Listen, you're not going to talk to me. You're not going to talk to me and talk over me
New York residents
because you don't want to hear what I have to say.
Oh, I'm listening.
So why don't you just keep your mouth shut? Oh, because you showed up.
Is that the way to talk? You're the one who actually voted to shut the government down.
Actually, you know that's not true.
It's sad. You voted to shut the government down.
The Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the president.
Right, and you're smart enough to know that you need 60 votes in the Senate, right?
Is that right? No.
Do you need 60 votes in the Senate?
Okay, so that's how it started. And joining us now for more is Congressman Michael Lawler. Good to see you. What started that?
Thanks for having me. Well, I was listening to his press conference in which he was once again lying about the shutdown. The fact is, Hakeem Jeffries and every single House Democrat, but for one, voted to shut the government down nearly 3 weeks ago. And, of course, Senator Schumer, who's petrified of a primary challenge from AOC, has been blocking the clean CR from advancing to keep the government open and funded. So I went down to where he was holding the press conference to wait for him to come out and ask him why he shut the government down, number one, and number two, why he wouldn't join me in the bipartisan bill to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies for 1 year, and why, if that's the issue that they're concerned about, he wouldn't be fighting alongside me to get that done. And the reality is we know why. He's a hypocrite. Number one. And number two, this really isn't about health care. This is about their far left base and the fact that they are petrified that if they actually do their jobs, they will be primaried and removed from office.
Remember when Donald Trump put the meme out of Hakeem Jeffries with the sombrero, right? And Hakeem said, all right, well, come say it to my face. You actually did that today. If we can widen out the video, Jeffries, as minority leader, has Secret Service protection. You can see the bodyguard right behind him there. When he said, keep your mouth shut, Congressman, that felt like for a moment he was going to hit you. Did you feel that?
Look, he was obviously very rattled and emotional. And, frankly, at times unhinged. He was stuttering, stammering, couldn't answer a single question that I posed to him. I didn't feel threatened, though. I mean, the reality is there's nothing he can do. And the fact that he couldn't answer a single question
he
spoke more volumes than anything else.
Would you have hit him back if he hit you?
Listen, it wasn't like that. But, look, at the end of the day, to me, this is very simple. He is playing politics with the lives of the American people. The government should be open. Chuck Schumer should get back to work, do his job, pass the clean CR that House Republicans passed over 3 weeks ago so that we can actually focus on these issues. While they're sitting around playing patty cake here at Capitol Hill, President Trump just secured a peace deal in the Middle East and is securing the release of the remaining hostages. So maybe, just maybe, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer could wake up and realize that they look like a clown show on Capitol Hill. And instead of shutting the government down because they're afraid of AOC and Zohran Mamdani, they could actually do their job so that we can keep the government funded and open and pay our troops while President Trump is trying to get these hostages brought home.
New York Republican Representative Mike Lawler on Finnerty last night. Yesterday, the Senate vote on the House GOP CR, the continuing resolution that Speaker Johnson and most other Republicans have been talking about, and the Democrats' counter bill to the CR, both couldn't get the required votes in the Senate. Meanwhile, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, broke with the party on Wednesday, calling or demanding Speaker Johnson bring the House back into session, saying Americans, like her own grown children, for example, will be hammered by the high cost of insurance if her party doesn't help right the ship. She even went on CNN to talk about it. And over at the White House, as I mentioned, President Trump is holding a cabinet meeting today, but yesterday held a roundtable on Antifa and the administration's crackdown on crime.
It should be clear to all Americans that we have a very serious left-wing terror threat in our country. Radicals associated with the domestic terror group Antifa that you've heard a lot about lately, and I've heard a lot about them for 10 years. And other far-left extremists have been carrying out a campaign of violence against ICE agents and other officials charged with enforcing federal law. In Chicago, anarchists have surveilled at least 4 local ICE facilities and posted diagrams of the buildings online, meaning nothing but bad, accompanied by photos of specific ICE agents that they're targeting, one in particular who's a top person and a great patriot. In July, approximately a dozen Antifa-aligned militants stormed the ICE facility in Texas and then lured officers out of the building before firing dozens of rounds at police. They were crazy, frankly, shooting one Texas officer in the neck And in Portland, Oregon, Antifa thugs have repeatedly attacked our offices and laid siege to federal property in an attempt to violently stop the execution of federal law. Everything we're doing is very lawful. What they're doing is not lawful. And what the governor and the mayor of, as an example, you could say of Portland, and you can say certainly of Chicago, it's not lawful what they're doing. They have to be very careful. In addition, 2 weeks ago, radical left terrorists in Dallas conducted a sniper attack on a local ICE facility, killing 2 people and leaving behind a note that read, "Hopefully this will give ICE agents some real terror." That's bad. This attack came the very same month that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a far-left extremist who inscribed the words, "Hey, fascist, catch," meaning catch the bullet, onto the bullet shelf itself. The epidemic of left-wing violence and Antifa-inspired terror has been escalating for nearly a decade. At universities, Antifa has organized riotous mobs to attack campus speakers. I see it all the time. And these are agitators, anarchists, and they're paid. And you'll find that out. You'll be finding it out very soon. You should see what we have on these people. These are bad people. These are people that want to destroy our country. We're not going to let it happen.
President Trump speaking at the White House roundtable yesterday, and he started that meeting by saying he thinks that they were getting very close to getting a peace deal in the Middle East. And then, of course, as we've been discussing, the big announcement came later in the day. For more on Antifa and the administration's fight against crime, we go to the Chris Salcedo Show and Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dhillon.
Now, after President Trump declared Antifa a terror organization, the Democrats responded by saying that Antifa really doesn't exist. It's just an idea. You know, that begs the question, how is an idea giving people black eyes in Portland, beating people, burning down buildings? Does Antifa meet the legal definition of a terrorist organization?
Well, I believe it does, and it's certainly an organized crime organization. You know, some would say disorganized into cells, but look, I've actually sued Portland Antifa and several of the criminals who assaulted my good friend Andy Ngo and client, who's there as part of that roundtable today. I can assure you that the injuries inflicted on Andy and other journalists there are very real. And the organization of this entity with like very sophisticated leaders who fly around the country and cause problems all over the country, it is very real. It is very scary, and it poses a direct threat to our national security if left unchecked. So I'm thrilled as an American and proud as a DOJ official to see the leadership of Pam Bondi and the president in ensuring that we're going to use all necessary resources to go after this terror threat in our cities.
And conservatives are thrilled about you, I got to be honest, because I'm talking about conservative influencer and myself, Nick Sortor. He was over the moon after he was arrested, learning that you would be investigating what happened here. While violent Antifa thugs were allowed to get off scot-free, he's arrested. The arrest of Sortor was so flimsy, the left-wing DA out there in Portland declined to bring charges. Shouldn't there be consequences, though, for a rogue police department that appears to be making politically motivated arrests?
Well, there should be, and I will tell you that Mr. Sortor has retained counsel, and I'm sure that there is probably going to be a civil suit forthcoming for the violation of his First Amendment rights. But he's one of many journalists who've been attacked, scapegoated, and had the police stand by and watch. And by the way, not to blame the police are acting under the direction of the political leadership in the city. They're also under a federal consent decree that was issued by the Obama administration a long time ago. It's still active, and that is the basis under which I immediately opened a federal civil rights investigation into what's going on currently on the ground in Portland. We issued a document request that's very detailed. Portland has to comply with it. Portland triggered a mediation that occurred earlier today that was unfruitful. And so now we're going to make sure that Portland complies and gives us the data. And we will make sure that the policing is done appropriately in that city to the maximum extent possible within federal law. And you cannot, as police and as a city, go after journalists while you allow criminal gangs to run free. That is not a thing we can do here in America.
That is Harmeet Dhillon, our Assistant AG for Civil Rights on the Chris Salcedo Show, now at 5 o'clock Eastern. While the left protects the blatant crimes and blatant violence of Antifa, let me remind you, Proud Boy Enrique Tarrio was sentenced to 22 years in prison by the Biden DOJ for crimes related to January 6th, even though he wasn't even in Washington on January 6th. Do not forget that. In other news, LA officials announced the arrest of a 29-year-old Florida man on suspicion of igniting a fire that eventually turned into the devastating, horrific Palisades fire, destroying thousands of homes and businesses. He was living in Pacific Palisades at the time, working as an Uber driver. This is California Governor Gavin Newsom in a news conference yesterday.
This suspect is ultimately held accountable. That at least, I think, calms the fear and anxiety that some people felt around what and who was responsible and how this actually occurred.
And Joan Kennedy, the former wife of Senator Edward Ted Kennedy, died at the age of 89. Her son Patrick and his wife Amy confirmed her death in a statement saying Mrs. Kennedy was a classically trained pianist, an advocate for mental health and addiction recovery, among other things. Joan Kennedy, obviously, is also the aunt of HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who also released a statement on X. On Wall Street, stock markets opened mixed to flat this morning after closing at fresh record highs again yesterday, along with gold and silver now at all-time record highs. This morning, gold is at $4,073 an ounce, silver at $49.80. Bitcoin is at 123,300 and change. My. All right, so there's an unscheduled cabinet meeting coming together at the White House now to discuss the Middle East ceasefire and the plan moving forward. The president also welcoming the president of Finland to the White House later today. They will participate in a bilateral meeting, of course, and that meeting, it looks like, is going to be closed to the press, so we may not get an inside view of that. Be sure to keep up with all of today's news and any breaking developments on Newsmax N2 and at Newsmax.com. Don't forget the news starts each and every morning, 6 o'clock Eastern with Alex Kramer, followed by Wake Up America, National Report, Newsline at noon with Bianca, American Agenda, all the way through Rob Schmidt tonight at 7, Finnerty, Greg Kelly, The Right Squad, and much, much more. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening. If you haven't been paying attention, the New York Yankees were eliminated from the Major League Baseball playoffs last night, losing the series to the Toronto Blue Jays. The playoffs continue tonight. The NHL season has officially started, and Thursday Night Football features a great NFC matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles going to the Meadowlands to crush the Giants. I say that because the Eagles are coming off of a loss. And the Giants, well, they just ain't that good. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Pay attention. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.